Hi Alex, great to have you here.
Hello mate, how you doing?
Very good. Please introduce yourself.
So I'm Alex. I am an entrepreneur. I've built several businesses. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Typical journey, starting out very, very young from the mindset perspective. But I got fascinated with social media when that was in its early iterations of being a way we connect and a way businesses connect. When I was at university with people. And I rode that wave in every angle possible in my career, I guess. So built a business called Content Cal, which was a social media marketing platform. The actual goal of that was to build something that people could use every day to kind of ease their lives with the work that they were doing, because it's a hugely intensive job, which I was doing at the time. Had a phenomenal journey with that, built that business up, raised $40 million of angel investment, went on the whole ride through to exiting that company to Adobe in 2021. Had an amazing 3-year kind of stint at Adobe. And more recently, I've joined Jack, as you know, as CEO and an investor. And that has been a phenomenal journey as well, kind of looking at the big picture around mental health, the way technology is impacting mental health, the way society has changed over the last 10, 15 years, and how technology is so intertwined with our lives. And so much happens in a kind of year, if you like, in the world of post-COVID, pre-COVID, how the world is being disrupted through technology. And Jack is a phenomenal place to kind of work and understand how we can play a role, whether it's with AI or through our technologies and content, to help change the world in a really positive way. So that's me.
Amazing. What a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey. Yeah. And the reason I'm sort of so interested in this space is that having gone through kind of the startup journey and had the end goal of success, if you like, that everybody wants to aspire to, my personal journey alongside that never quite add up to what people perceive to be this amazing moment, right? When you sell a business and you go through all the positive outcomes of that and you fulfill your goal and your journey. But we were talking about this before, the biggest opposite of that was probably the worst moment actually in my personal life for various different reasons, about how it changed my life, just different circumstances that came up. I lost a huge sense of purpose, having wanted to be an entrepreneur from such a young age. And so you're at the peak of your kind of career, but actually you're at the kind of pit of your emotional existence. And that was this huge conundrum for me. And when you flow all that together with the way the world's changed just in the last 3 or 4 years, with the kind of change in terms of technology, the way the world is just kind of working at the moment, politically, etc., I don't think it's been an ever more exciting time to be part of a business or a force for good that can hopefully create a lot of positive change over the long term through AI, through technology, through content. But that dichotomy of, yeah, having huge success theoretically to actually having also really difficult personal times is what led me to be so interested in the world of mental health, how we process it, the challenges I've had, and how we can deal with it as people.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. You're the CEO of Jack. That's a role that you've kind of taken on. What does that Jack do, and how does AI fit into helping people with mental health?
Jack is an incredible platform. So we provide really engaging and kind of celebrity lived experience and expert driven content, which is really well crafted and created and produced across different spectrums of mental health, ranging from I can't sleep very well, and actually that's disrupting my daily life, through to things that are more serious like anxiety and depression, and things that we've seen huge rises around over the few years, and things like menopause, just tons of different challenges. So we provide content that you can watch in a, actually, given the subject matter, quite an engaging way. It's educational, it's not entertaining, but it can kind of pique your interest based on the people we've got involved. So again, whether it's celebrities and experts, it's almost insightful and somewhat challenging, but also enjoyable to watch, because you can actually resonate with something that you've gone through. For example, I've read a lot about anxiety that I struggled with for a long time without realizing what the hell anxiety even was. Suddenly I can learn what it is, what the feeling is around it, how it's impacting my life. So we produce it in a really special way. And we offer that out to free, completely for free on jack.org, to anybody who can come along and watch that content. We work with corporates and businesses about how we kind of produce that in a kind of corporate setting as well for employees. And we use AI in a conversational way. So the rise of ChatGPT, OpenAI, and all the other kind of platforms that have had this huge growth spurt in the last few years, and the way that kind of technology is changing the world is amazing, in that it can absorb and play back to us so much information about so many different subjects. The challenge with some of the platforms at the moment is around how it's machine driven, right? When we go onto OpenAI or we use one of those platforms, we know it's a robot at the end of it, basically giving us these answers and giving us this knowledge. What we're trying to do with Jack is create a environment where you're actually speaking to a person at the end of it, and there isn't actually a person, but creating a tone, a way of communicating, a way of dialoguing, using the data that we've got from the video content, and really humanizing AI in a mental health setting to make our users and people feel comfortable talking about these things and learning from people that have been through them, that they can aspire to or kind of resonate to in a way that I don't think anybody else on earth is doing. And so we think that combination of AI, content, and people being able to truly resonate with a platform on a human level is what's going to change the world and help basically solve some of the mental health challenges that the world's going through at the moment.
And talk about some of those challenges. So you're obviously using AI with Jack to be a force for good and to help people. Do you think there's a flip side to that?
I think there's a flip side to a certain extent. I think we're so early in the AI journey that there's a lot of skepticism, and if used incorrectly, obviously it has huge power to do or play a role in negative things. And that's a fact of where we are from a technology basis. People can use these tools for good, or they can use these tools for negative consequence stuff, right? And so when you take a choice as a human being, where do you want to spend your time if you know about that kind of stuff? I'm a technologist, so I know how to work with AI and products and tools and customer experiences and user experiences to bring them to life for people. I think that depending on who you are and how you lean, the macro level view for technology in this space is a positive one. And if you have enough smart people and teams and kind of mission-driven companies, organizations, charities, etc., that can use the power of these technologies for good, that's where the end goal is. There's always going to be disruption along the way. There's always going to be confusion along the way. But macro level, I think human beings want to live in a peaceful environment overall. And I think if we can use them to accelerate some of the challenges that we have, that's where the end kind of settled goal is for me in terms of how these technologies come together. I think the statistic is 50% of people in the world, so it's a huge population, right, experience at some point in their life a mental health challenge. So that's half of us. And that's probably going to increase over time just because the world is becoming more complex. In terms of commercial terms, there's about $1 trillion worth of value lost every single year globally. And I'd probably say that's on the low side, but that's the rough estimates at the moment in mental health challenges around how that impacts the economy globally. And so if we can make a small dent in some of that, we can significantly improve, number one, people's lives. If 50% of people are going to have a challenge in this space, how can we use technology to help that? And you're going to have to do it through tech at that scale because there's too many people to do it any other way. There's not enough therapists out there that can help solve that problem, so we're going to have to do that through technology. And if you can increase kind of positive consumption in the world through the economic side of things, I think you can create a win-win scenario for the world. So I'm very, very passionate about how we can do those things together.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. What does AI to peace mean to you?
AI for peace means to me scale. And if you just take that mental health example, but you extrapolate it to other challenges in the world that we face, whether they're economic or kind of more on the emotional side of life, there aren't enough human beings, unfortunately, to work in a consistent, flowing way to tackle those challenges anymore. We've kind of gone past the point where humans can solve all of their own problems at scale. And I think the way the world's going with the pace of media, the pace of how things travel in terms of news, the accessibility of that globally, there's never been a day where you could open a mobile phone and see news from another country so instantaneously and potentially be freaked out by it. And that happens multiple times a day. And then the way we interact in our lives and the connectivity and things like that, there's just so many more touch points that we have to deal with as humans than ever before. Like I said, AI for peace for me means using the technologies to help create more positive input, positive outcomes, positive resolutions at dramatic scale to benefit society. And that's how I think about it. And I think if we, like I said, if we can use the products and tools that humans have now to their disposal, and they're still going to continue to grow and be learnt from, that to me is the best way to use this technology for peace, whether that is in a kind of actual war setting or whether that's in creating a peaceful life for people. And I think that's what we all aspire to deep down inside, is comfort, security and peace, right? So I think AI can play a really positive role in that, and we've just got to go through the journey of understanding how we get there.
You're quite passionate about social media. You obviously built a social media business. We've talked before about AI's impact in social media, the good and the bad of that. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's an amazing book called The Anxious Generation, which can pretty much pinpoint from when most of the big social media platforms back in about 2010 started to truly take off at scale. And you can see sort of the rise in terms of usage across the world. And you can correlate with that the dramatic rise in anxiety and depression in people at all ages. And then the book extrapolates into lots more sort of considerations around social media and its impact on society. I think that on the downside, it has given always existing echo chambers of negativity a huge platform to amplify them. And when you create that dynamic where, whether it's whatever the negative subject is, mass distribution, the ability for algorithms to then feed more of that to people, etc. And it's human nature to have a level of intrigue around things that are both positive and negative. It can create quite a groundswell, if you like, of repeated exposure to things that can be negatively influential on our mental health and how we think and how we live. And therefore you see these increases in anxiety, depression, etc. On the flip side, if you look at the positive outcomes of social media, you can connect with your friends with complete ease. You can meet people online that you would never have met before in settings that you may never come across without having to leave your bedroom. You can connect with family members instantaneously across the world, no matter where they are. And we live in a global world nowadays, so the ability to connect with your mum, and you might live in a different country or something like that, is now instantaneous and free. I mean, that's the other thing. All of this stuff is free to use. And so I think the challenge around this is like, no one invented social media knowing how it would impact the world. And it's taken probably since 2010 to start to understand the impact of constant feed updating and things like that on how we live as humans. And I think over time, as we understand these things more, and I think the education around it and the studies around it are becoming much more sophisticated than they were in the early days. One of the things we need to teach ourselves as society is how to use social media and how to interpret what we see on there. I think social media is often not well understood as a magazine of our life, particularly platforms like Instagram and things like that. And if we can train people how to understand it, train people to understand the impact of it on our brains, we can actually make it a safer environment for people to use. And so for me, that's always something I've wanted to pursue as well, and just understand. And I think Jack, again, can help with a lot of that in terms of how we educate people, whether it's the anxiety, depression thing, or even on how does social media work and how does it, positively or negatively impact my mental health. And so I think this is a really, really big subject that we've got to get right in society.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, thanks to Jack for sponsoring. Thanks to you. Thanks for Danny. Thanks for the team. Where can people find out more? And also, we didn't say what Jack stands for, just in case some people don't know.
Jack, just ask a question. Doesn't need explaining. Yeah. Just ask a question. The whole idea behind that is actually, if you've got a mental health condition, quite often it is just asking a question that will get you to have intrigue around it and therefore understand what you're going through, because so many people don't. Yeah, you can find Jack on jack.org. Jack is Jack on everything on social media. We'd love for you to support us and come and have a look at the platform. We're here for a great reason to kind of, like I said, help the kind of mental health journey people are going on. We've had great response from the platform so far, so if anyone's interested, definitely take a look.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Steve.